how can I help other people when I can't even help myself, or I'm still dealing with my own issues? So I know that that issue is coming up because I don't believe that I've worked with anybody in this field that we haven't eventually come around to that. There is that feeling that we're all dealing with as coaches in one way or another, that feeling of self-doubt or imposter syndrome or whatever it is that you want to label it.
Yeah, and usually we kind of have a little bit of a framework for these things. We usually sort of talk about, what we're going to talk about, and we discuss it before we do the live. And today, Steve wanted to do that, and I said, no, 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 let's not talk about it first, so that we can have this conversation fresh, this discussion. So I don't know what Steve's take on this is, and he doesn't know what mine is, so you're going to be part of the discovery process. I did want to clarify that, so there's imposter syndrome and self-doubt and all of that. A lot of that is not warranted, in that we tend to be self-critical when there's no reason to be, just because of the limiting beliefs and so on. But there is also practical times, and I know that this was the case for me early on. I was coaching other people to improve their lives while I was still struggling and couldn't pay my bills. I mean, that's like a practical, literal thing where I wasn't earning enough of an income, I couldn't pay my bills, and yet I was coaching other people. Let me ask you this question first of all. Do you believe that a person shouldn't be helping other people to do something when they haven't been able to even help themselves? What's your view on that?
I think it's a good question. As you're saying that, I'm also wondering like where people are at viewing as well. So, if you got a thought on that while I'm coming up with an answer, while I'm stalling to come up with an answer, go ahead and share with us your thoughts on that. Where do you stand with should somebody be helping? I would say that I never really personally was in a place that I couldn't help somebody else. I was trained, I'd gone through training, several different types of training, but clearly I was trained as a traditional psychotherapist, so I had a lot of background. But what I was dealing at the time, similar to you, there was, some financial, depending on how people wanted to define that, there were some financial issues. But I think for me that I was also dealing with my own emotional stuff. I was dealing with daily anxiety. I was dealing with some depression, and there were ups and downs, but clearly a time when I was engaged in helping other people when I was incredibly depressed. That for me was a moment of, should I be helping somebody else if I can't get beyond this? I know that from the experience of my clients and knowing that I was able to, despite my being in that position myself, I remember actively helping somebody out of a suicidal position. So they had walked into the office and I was dealing with them, and a bit of an adrenaline kind of rush, that recognition that I was dealing with somebody who was actively contemplating suicide. And it was like, okay, so I recognized that even though I was dealing with my own stuff and my own depression, I was still able to help other people. So I do believe that we're in this work because we have something to offer, because we've been trained, because we are doing that. I believe that life is always going to be presenting things. We're always going to be dealing with things to a certain degree. Now, I know from the work that we've done, the work that I've done with myself, that we've done together, kind of things regarding the foundations of that self-doubt, of the imposter syndrome, the roots of my anxiety and depression, recognizing and dealing with that. Now I'm coming to the work that I do in a completely different place. That imposter syndrome, the self-doubt, that is no longer present.
Right. For me, I believe it depends on what you are using to help the other people and whether it's effective or not. So in other words, I think that it's true that you shouldn't be helping other people when you haven't helped yourself if what you're using doesn't work. It hasn't worked for you and it's not working for those people. And there is quite a lot of that. Not just in the self-help industry, but in marketing and social media and that kind of thing. There are a lot of experts, gurus or whatever, who are suggesting things to people that they think in theory should work, but they haven't been able to get themselves to that point. And it's not working for their clients either, for those people who they're sharing it with, then I think that phrase is true. That's on a practical level. And then what you do is you find something that does work, and then you teach that. But on the other hand, if what you're doing is working for the people you're helping, so even if it hasn't worked for you, if you are able to help those other people, then I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Answering that phrase that comes to us when we have self-doubt or imposter syndrome, how can I help other people when I can't even help myself? The answer to that is, if what I'm sharing with these people is helping them, the fact that it's not helping me is not a reason to not do it. Because back then, what I was talking about earlier, I couldn't pay my bills, but I was helping other people clear their emotional blocks and subconscious blocks, and it was working for them. So I had all of these testimonials, these messages of gratitude. What I was teaching was working for them, but it wasn't working for me. Now, if I had gone along with that phrase of, well, I can't help other people if I can't help myself, if I'd bought into that, then there are people who wouldn't have been able to get changes themselves because I couldn't get past it.
That makes sense. The question then for me, or that others I think might also have, is, well, what do we do about that self-doubt, the imposter syndrome? Were you actually able to change any of that for yourself? Were you able to get the changes, or how did you go about getting the changes?
Yeah, great question. So what I discovered is I was kind of partway there. I had improved a lot of my emotional issues. I'd improved the stress and that kind of thing. There was a lot still that wasn't changed for me, even though it was changed for others. But what I discovered was my brain's GPS was still set for the struggle and drama and not deserving and all of that. So this is, of course, what we do now, is changing the implicit childhood memories that the brain is referring to that proves I'm not good enough, I don't deserve, and all of the other limiting beliefs. Changing that in me then gave me the results, completely changed my life, leveled me up completely, and I'm living a very different life now. But the fact that I couldn't help myself didn't mean that I shouldn't help others to the best I could. The other thing I wanted to add is, very often helping other people actually helps us as well. We've experienced that, both of us, at different times, where we've been feeling a little low, a little meh, and then we work with a client and it's this big uplifting thing. And that's because as humans, our brains are designed for connection and altruism and helping others, as long as we're not in immediate danger. So as we help someone else, the brain is producing dopamine and other feel-good chemicals.
Kind of maybe summarizing just a little bit, if we're really honestly and authentically coming from this place of wanting to help other people, that's who we are, and I'm sure that those are the people that we're reaching out to and are connecting with us. If we're engaged in an honest and authentic pursuit of helping other people and really trying to become the best versions of that for other people, then I feel like those feelings of self-doubt, imposter syndrome, those feelings, however they're being expressed for the individual, those are the things, those are those gateway moments for us to be able to dive in deeper, to be able to get at, explore, transform whatever it was in our past that built that belief system in the first place. Even though it feels in the moment like I've got that self-doubt, I shouldn't be helping somebody else. The bottom line is, it's just a reference to something that's going on in the past. And that's what can be changed. And that's what both of us have changed. It's the way that we now work, and it's what we share with other people. Changing that, in fact, changes everything.
Absolutely. This is a very important message I want to say, is that the message I want to give to people out there, coaches and trainers and anybody else who's helping people, if you feel you can't help yourself, got that feeling of how can I help other people if I can't even help myself, answer that. Answer it the way you would answer a friend, and answer it with, if those people that you're helping are benefiting, it doesn't matter that you're not able to do it yourself yet. And while you are finding those solutions for yourself, while you are going through the process of making those changes and getting the results yourself, in the meantime, those people can be benefiting and you can help them. So be sure to not buy into that idea of you can't help someone else if you can't help yourself.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really important message I wanted to give.
Thinking about really successful professional athletes or professional coaches in sports.
Yeah.
And oftentimes the people who are those top name coaches of whatever sporting team, whatever football, basketball, whatever sport you want to think of, they're often not the most
They haven't reached
talented.
that level
Yeah,
themselves.
they know how to bring the coaching, and that's
That's
what
a
it's
really
about.
important point. That's a great point. There are piano teachers who have taught musicians who've become great musicians, but the teacher themselves wasn't necessarily a great musician.
That double level point that we're making here, that practical level of like be a good coach, but then at the personal level, take a look at those feelings of being an imposter, that lack of confidence. Those are the issues that we can actually change by changing the references that we're holding on to from childhood. You can take note that we do have an upcoming live webinar, and the date for that will be
August 13th.
Coming up very quickly, and the link for that is in the description box as well. So join us for a more in-depth discussion.
Yeah.
So check out the links. We hope to see you next week in our live webinar. And until then, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.